the eye of the storm to the edge of survival. This is the Midnight Files when nature strikes. Tonight, we're reliving one of the strongest hurricanes to ever make its way through the Atlantic Ocean. This is the story of the fury and legacy of one of the most powerful hurricanes. And it was quick, it was violent, and unforgettable. This is the story of Hurricane Wilma. Striking in the infamous 2005 hurricane season, Wilma wasn't just another storm, she was the storm. She reached the lowest pressure ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean, intensified faster than nearly any system before or since, and left devastation from the Caribbean to South Florida. Tonight we unravel the anatomy of a storm that set the sky on fire and tore across borders, leaving behind silence, sorrow, and a warning. The 2005 Atlantic hurricane season wasn't just busy, it was biblical. There were so many named storms that year, they ran out of letters in the alphabet, and they had to dip into the Greek list: Alpha, Beta, Gamma. By the time October rolled around, the Gulf of Mexico was still boiling, literally and figuratively. Ocean temperatures were abnormally high, the atmosphere was very unstable, and the wind shear practically non-existent. A perfect breeding ground for strong hurricanes. This was the season Katrina, Rita, and Dennis, each a monster in its own right. But what came next was very different. On October 15, 2005, a small cluster of thunderstorms near the Western Caribbean drew the eye of meteorologists. It was nothing unusual at first, storms pop up all the time. But it had the look, the rotation, and the potential. That cluster quickly organized into Tropical Depression 24, then Tropical Storm Wilma, but it didn't stay a storm for long. In a span of 24 hours, Wilma exploded from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane. Her wind speeds were skyrocketing, and her central pressure plunging to a staggering 882 millibars. It was the lowest pressure ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean. Meteorologists were stunned. This wasn't just rapid intensification, this was historic. At its peak, Wilma's eye was just 2.3 miles wide, a tiny pinpoint of a terrifying calm surrounded by sheer chaos. On October 21st, Wilma slammed into Mexico's Yucatán Peninsula, near Cancun. She hit as a Category 4, but it wasn't just her power, it was her persistence. For nearly 48 hours, Wilma crawled over the region. Streets became rivers, communications collapsed. Survivors described it as 2 straight days of the world ending. It wasn't just a hurricane, it was a siege. Wilma then turned east, brushing past Cuba, where thousands were evacuated. Though the eye never made landfall, the storm surge and outer bands wreaked havoc. Farms were destroyed, the power was cut, but Cuba, with its rigorous evacuation protocols, managed to minimize fatalities. From there, Wilma gained speed and set her sights on the United States. On October 24, 2005, the sun hadn't yet risen in South Florida. Just before 6 a.m., Hurricane Wilma made landfall near Cape Romano with sustained winds of 120 miles per hour, a strong Category 3. But this was no ordinary Category 3. Naples, Fort Myers, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, they all felt it. Glass exploded from high rises, trees flew like spears, roofs peeled off like paper. In the Everglades, the storm surge pushed salt water inland. Crops were drowned, livestock had vanished, and yet, some residents said they'd let their guard down after Katrina and Rita. Floridians were weary. Some underestimated Wilma. They wouldn't again. In Wilma's wake, the numbers spoke volumes. 87 lives across the Caribbean, Central America, and the United States were lost. An estimated $29 billion in total damages, making it one of the costliest hurricanes in U.S. history. In Florida alone, over 6 million people lost power, some for more than 3 weeks long. Schools were shut down, gas stations ran dry. Cell towers obviously crumbled. Residents stood in line for ice, food, and fuel. In hard-hit areas like Broward and Palm Beach counties, frustration mounted as recovery lagged and federal aid arrived slowly. FEMA and the National Guard were deployed, setting up supply stations, clearing roads, and restoring basic services. But many residents said the response felt disorganized and very slow, especially in the low-income neighborhoods. In Mexico's Yucatán Peninsula, where Wilma had lingered for nearly 48 hours, the destruction was near total. Cancun's tourist economy collapsed overnight. Thousands of hotel workers were displaced. The Mexican military and Red Cross mobilized quickly, but rebuilding would take months, even years. International aid arrived in the form of food, medical supplies, and rescue volunteers, especially in Jamaica, Cuba, and Central America, where early flooding had triggered landslides. Insurance payouts were historic. In Florida alone, insurers processed over 1 million claims. The storm would force many companies to reevaluate coverage in hurricane-prone zones, and for some, to pull out of Florida entirely. But amid the rubble, resilience emerged. Neighbors helped neighbors. Local shelters housed families for weeks. Churches, schools, and volunteers became the backbone of relief. Wilma didn't just damage homes, she tested the strength of the communities, and many rose to meet the challenge. So what made Wilma so powerful? Scientists point to warm sea surface temperatures, low wind shear, and a moist, unstable atmosphere. But Wilma's rapid intensification also reminded us of how quickly a storm can become a killer. And today, with climate change warming our oceans, the threat of storms like Wilma is growing, not shrinking. It was a sign, it was a message carried by the wind. That was Hurricane Wilma, a storm of records, ruin, and remembrance. This has been the Midnight Files, When Nature Strikes. If you lived through Wilma, we want to hear your story. Email us or leave a message or comment. Please like and subscribe our videos. We always appreciate that. Tell us your experience and what you lived through, even if it wasn't this storm. Please check out our other videos we've experienced, like tornadoes in Joplin, Missouri, and the El Reno tornado. Please stop by, and we appreciate it. And until next time, remember to stay safe and always be on the lookout for strong storms closest to you. Take care. Good night.